What's going on, Jam Fam? Welcome back to the gaming station. Today we're going to be continuing the meta series with everybody's favorite control-based mode, Hotzone. Now, as a side note, I do know that people have been requesting Duo, Showdown, and Bounty. We're going to get to those modes eventually, but Hotzone's the next one in rotation for my schedule, so we're doing Hotzone today. As usual, we're going to be using win rates and pick rates to pick the brawlers in the meta list, as well as some honorable mentions. If you're new and not sure what I'm talking about, I explained it all in the gem grab video. I've also covered solo showdown, siege, brawl ball, and heist at this point, and we'll be following up with bounty and duo showdown in the next couple of days. So stay tuned for those. But anyway, let's get into the honorable mentions for this before I go on any longer. Alright, the first honorable mention for Hotzone is going to be Barley. Right now, Barley has a 68.7% win rate, which is good for third in the mode, and the 11th highest use rate at 3.57. Now, his use rate's a little too low to make the normal list, but his win rate is definitely solid in the mode, coming in third, and I would highly recommend playing Barley on the one zone maps where you can just hang out behind the zone and just throw your shots into the zone and try to do chip damage while you have a tank or somebody try to hold the zone down and score points for you. He does struggle a bit on the 2 and 3 zone maps, as he's not really great at holding down the point himself, but he is great at supporting somebody while they hold down the point. So for this reason, I would suggest that Barley just hangs out in the back on the one zone maps and does chip damage, like I said earlier. Next brawler I wanted to mention is Sandy. Right now, Sandy has the 12th highest win rate at 65.2% and the 7th highest pick rate at 5.62%. So Sandy does solid damage and he can 3-tap a lot of brawlers. But my favorite thing about Sandy is his gadget in Hotzone, because you can back out of the zone, use your gadget, and heal back up to full health and then jump right back into a fight. Not to mention his area of effect on his normal attack does pretty well in Hotzone because everyone tends to be clumped up. So between his gadget and his area of effect on his attack, he can do pretty solid in the mode. And the last honorable mention is actually going to be Ems.
I'm only here for
right
the
now,
trophies.
Ems has the 8th highest win rate at 67.0% and the number 1 use rate at 12.44%. Ems is probably one of the best control brawlers in the game, and this mode being all about control, she's definitely going to shine in it most of the time. You're pretty much always going to be able to hit your opponent if they're standing on the zone, which is insanely good for her attack because you know what range to keep them at. And when you manage to get her super, it makes it very difficult for people to get away from you. And then, of course, like I said, you could stay in that perfect range and do the most amount of damage possible to them. Also, Hotzone is a mode where people try to use tanks to hold the zone, and Ems is a natural counter to tanks, so of course that's going to boost her win rates by a little bit as well. Yeah, in my opinion, Ems is one of the best brawlers for Hotzone. She didn't quite make the list this time, even though her stats did qualify her, being in the top 10 of both win and pick rate. But she can definitely still be played in the mode, and I highly recommend trying her out if you haven't. Alright, so we're a little far into this video, so if we go a little faster, I apologize for that, but we're going to move on to the top 5, and number 5 is going to be Penny. Right now, Penny has the 7th highest win rate at 67.1% and the 4th highest use rate at 6.06%. So there's 2 major reasons why Penny's really good in Hotzone. First off, her normal attack does the splash damage after you land your first shot, and people do tend to group up in the zone, whether that's on a 1-zone map or a 2-zone map. So you're almost always going to be able to get extra value on your shot if people aren't paying attention where you are. And the other reason is because of her turret, of course. With being able to land your splash shots pretty easily, you can charge your super very quickly, and then once you get your super down, you can just exert pressure onto the zone and make people have to move around and get out of the zone, or else they'll just take damage unnecessarily. I highly recommend playing Penny in the 1-zone maps, but she can work in the 2-zone maps. I wouldn't really try her in the 3-zone maps, though. Alright, just like that, we're going to move on to number 4. Number 4 is going to be Gale. Right now, Gale is tied with Penny for 7th in win rate at 67.1%, but he has a higher use rate at 8.11%, which is good for 3rd in the mode. So while Gale doesn't do the most damage in the game, he is probably one of the better control brawlers. I wouldn't say he's as good as Ems, but he does do solid for this mode. Both his star powers work really well, either slowing down opponents from getting into the zone, or using your super and blowing them into a wall to stun them and pretty much guarantee a kill on them. And that's the other really good thing about Gale in this mode, is that his super allows him to blow people out of the zone and prevent them from continuing to score on your team. Also, his jump pad is really nice for getting back into the fight after you die. That's another thing to note for Gale. So yeah, 2 good star powers, a good gadget, and a really good super make Gale pretty solid for the mode. Alright, we're going to move on to number 3. Number 3 is going to be B. Right now, B has the 6th highest win rate at 67.3% and the 10th highest use rate at 3.82%. This is a really weird one for me. I can't really explain why B has such good numbers for this mode. Like with M's, I understand why she has good numbers even if there aren't a lot of tanks in the meta, but B normally thrives where there's tanks, and there's really no tanks in terms of use rates, so I can't explain it very well. So if you play B, try to bring Rattling Hive with you. That way it makes it harder for people to hide, and just make sure you're landing your shots, and apparently you'll do all right in the mode, so give her a try. And with that short-winded explanation out of the way, we're going to move on to number 2. Number 2 is going to be Nita. Right now, Nita has the 5th highest win rate at 67.7% and the 2nd highest use rate at 9.75%. Now, Nita makes a lot of sense to me because she did just get a buff and her bear is extremely good at pushing enemies back. So Nita's damage buff allows her to do quite a bit more damage when she 3-taps an opponent, and I would recommend running Fox Fur for her gadget, not the stun one, because you want to keep the bear on the field as long as possible, and in that regard I would also run bear with me to try to bolster up your bear's HP as well. Also, Nita has a decent amount of HP, so she's pretty good at holding the zone when she needs to as well. She's not like a glass cannon or anything out there. So overall, her kit just works really well for Hotzone, and I recommend playing her on pretty much any of those maps. I don't think there's a bad map for her personally. All right, we're gonna move on to number 1. Now, number 1 is gonna be Colette.
Best moment
Right now,
of my
Colette has
life!
the 2nd highest win rate in the mode at 69.0% and the 8th highest use rate at 3.99%. So Colette's got a little bit of everything you want for Hotzone. She does very well against tanks, and like I said earlier, people like to try to use tanks to hold down the hot zone. She also has her push it star power, which allows you to knock people out of the hot zone if you're able to run that. And with her gadget, she can pretty much 3-tap any brawler with the combination of her gadget and super or whatever. So that allows her to win pretty much any 1v1 matchup if she's in the zone by herself and she needs to hold it down. And she's also got a fair amount of range so that she's not totally useless when she gets pushed out of a zone. She can still do chip damage from afar. So yeah, Colette's kit does pretty well. Pretty much every aspect of it can perform pretty well in Hotzone if you're able to run like push it and her gadget and all that. Although if you don't have all that, I would say she's probably just one of those mid-tier brawlers. I wouldn't say she's the best, but when you're looking at the 600 plus trophy range, everyone has those. So yeah, that's why she ranked number 1 on this list. So just to recap, my top 5 are going to be Penny, Gale, B, Nita, and Colette. But let me know who you like to play in Hotzone and what you thought about this list. Overall, I think it's pretty decent. Like I said, Colette's pretty dependent on her star power and gadget to be really efficient in the mode. But other than that, I could see every single one of these brawlers performing pretty well. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I think the next one I'm going to come out with is going to be Bounty, and then we'll get to Duo Showdown. And that will wrap up this version of the meta series. So stay tuned for those. But anyway, we're going to wrap this video up now. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.